Chapter 18. The Sex Life of Happy Joe. Ida Jarvis lived down the street from us when I was about 14. She had a husband, Sidney I think his name was, stocky and dark, and they had a couple of kids. But it's always been Ida I remember the best. Ida was built. She must have been around 30 then, with long honey-colored hair, blue eyes, and a soft southern accent. At least that's how I'd like to remember her. What I don't remember is how she and Sid became friendly with my folks, and I don't think they could have had much in common. And I know my mother was not happy when Ida gave them one of her paintings, a semi-nude in the style of Gauguin, that bore a striking resemblance to Ida herself. I babysat with their kids once in a while, browsing through their books and magazines, and in the hot, muggy summer, Ida hired me to paint their white picket fence. It was a tedious ordeal, relieved only by her occasional appearance with glasses of icy lemonade and wearing the tightest shorts and t-shirts I'd ever seen. It was almost more than my pubescent loins could tolerate. And as I recall, the fence painting took quite a while. Somewhere between pickets, Ida showed me a little hand puppet she'd made from a colorful scraps of cloth. It had a cute smiling face, and she called it Happy Joe. Ida had an idea for a children's TV show, and she'd made some appointments at local stations to audition. We'd set up a makeshift puppet stage in her living room and started to rehearse original versions of familiar children's stories. Ida made a couple of fairy tale puppet characters, and for the most part we improvised, with Ida handling Happy Joe and I the rest. We had a good chemistry together, and in a short time we worked out a presentable routine. The only problem was that we worked in very close quarters behind the small stage, and Ida continued to wear tight, skimpy clothes and smell like a perfume counter. As we rehearsed, we occasionally rubbed against each other, and I began to wonder if all that rubbing was necessary or if Ida was trying to tell me something. Gordon Williamson was the old, long-gone Dumont Network station manager in Washington, D.C., and he had a children's show in the afternoons. Our audition knocked him out, or maybe it was Ida's short, tight dress. Anyway, he hired us to do a segment on his show, Happy Joe's Puppets. Once a week, Ida drove us into the city from Arlington across the river. I didn't have my license yet. Ida's skirts were apparently so constricting that she had to pull them up well above her knees, showing more leg than I was prepared for to comfortably reach the accelerator and clutch. By the time we got to the station, I was usually a nervous wreck, not because of the show, which was live and a piece of cake, but because of the state Ida had put me in, and it was no help when I began to realize that she was well aware of the effect she was having on me. I couldn't sleep at night, and listening to my folks' voices as they chatted in the living room, I heard my mother comment pointedly on the nude snapshots of Ida that she and Sid had shown them. Ida? Nude? It was simply mind-boggling. The next time I babysat at the Jarvises, I'll admit it, I looked all over for those nude pictures. No dice. I had to satisfy myself with a suggestive novel I found stashed on one of their bookshelves. Now I was torturing myself with the question of whether I should make a move on Ida. If I was guessing wrong about her signals, wouldn't I be embarrassed? And if she told my folks that I'd come on to her? On the other hand, if I was guessing right, then what would I do? Should I leave everything to her, the experienced older woman, or should I pretend I was an old hand and just hope for the best? After all, I understood everything in principle. But what if Sid found out? Maybe he wouldn't care. More likely he tried to beat the crap out of me, like Richard Brady in the 5th grade. Time passed, and with it, opportunity. For some reason I've forgotten, Ida decided to fold Happy Joe's tent and give up the show. Gordon, meanwhile, had another puppet made and asked me privately if I'd like to continue on my own. But I was getting more active at school, and anyway it wouldn't have been the same without Ida. We'd moved to the next town, leaving Ida and my fantasies behind. And years went by. It was 1973. I was 41 and producing the Jerry Lewis Labor Day telethon from an office in Hollywood when I got a call from Ida, and the memories came flooding back. Her breasts and thighs filling my imagination. She and Sid were in town and wanted to say hello. I didn't know how they'd located me, or why they'd wanted to, but I invited them to drop by. When they arrived the next day, I was stunned. They were old. Ida's hair was thin, wispy and gray, pulled back in a bun, and she wore glasses. Her clothes were loose-fitting, shapeless, drab. We had very little to talk about. Between strained silences and fits and starts, they asked about my family, and they told me about theirs, and they commented on pictures of Deborah and our kids. Finally, they relaxed and began describing their activities at church and their religious awakening. Afterwards, I thought about their visit. Ida had seemed the more religiously awakened. Maybe she'd come to show me that, in her middle years, she had had her act together, having forsaken matters of the flesh for more holy pursuits. Or maybe I had totally misunderstood her innocent earthiness all those years ago, and her intentions had always been pure. Either way, it was probably a good thing that I didn't put the make on Ida back then, all things considered. But I'm sorry I never found the nude snapshots.